you can use a query formula to create lists where you select data based on a number of parameters. This recording is going to focus on doing a very simple operation, which might not be that helpful in and of itself, but if you learn how to use query language based off something simple like this, you can then use it to run things that would be very complicated to type out all the formulas for by using simple sentence structure. So we have a list over here on the left that is a list of parent email addresses for students in a class. I'm going to go over here to the right, and again I'm going to start with equals and type the word query and then open parentheses. Now the first thing in a query formula you start with is selecting the data. So we're going to go over here on this sheet and select all of these first four columns because any data that you want to use to compare has to be part of the data set. So in this case it'll be A all the way through D. Then we'll put a comma to go to the next part of the formula. This is the query itself. So in this case we're going to start with a quotation mark and we're going to use the word select because we want it to pull some data for us, so to select some things. And we're going to tell it to select what we want to select. In this case, I'm going to do simply email addresses. You use the column identifier from over here on the left. So column C is where the email addresses are. And I'm going to say select C, where is telling it to then compare that to something. And in this case, we're just going to simply say where C, which is the same column, is not null. And in query language, is not null is how you tell it to select things that are not blank. After you finish that, you close the quotation mark and then put a close parentheses, and then you can hit enter. And as you can see, what it's done is it's gone ahead and pulled everything in column C that wasn't blank. So student 3 doesn't have anything pulled because we did not have a parent email address for them. This is very useful for if you want to be able to email, say, a class in mass with all the email addresses without having all the blanks, or without having to filter the list. Now again, filtering the list is not that difficult, so this in and of itself might not be that useful constantly, but we can do some later things with it, which I'll show in another recording that make it very useful for comparing to other data. Now, another thing you can do with this is you can draw as many columns as you want using a query formula. So this is just the email addresses all the way through here. But let's say that I wanted to go ahead and match them to the names in the same place. I'll go back to my query formula, and instead of only telling it to select C, I'm going to also tell it to select A, and then put a comma, and select B, and then put another comma so it will still select C. When I add that, you'll notice that now it gives the students' names and the parent email addresses. But again, it only draws the ones that are not blank. So it does not draw student 3 still because student 3 didn't have an address there. Now, within a query formula, you can also use it to sort your results. So let's say that you wanted them in alphabetical order because you needed to draw the information in some way that way. If you want to do them in alphabetical order, what you do is at the end, after all of this where you've told it what to select, you're going to add order by. You just type it out just like that. And then you pick what you want to order by. So let's use last name, which is in column B, order by B. And if I want it to go in alphabetical order A through Z, I'm going to type ASC for ascending. Now when I hit enter, what it's going to do is it's now done. Everyone that had a not blank for column C is now ordered. Now you'll notice that it put a student as the header, which is not really what we want, and then it put the header down here lower because L comes after the letter F, and so it did alphabetize that correctly. If you want it to recognize headers, you have to add one other thing to the query formula. And for some things it doesn't matter, but for this one it would since we're doing a sort on it. In that case, what you need to do is after the last quotation mark, you put a final comma, and then you put the number 1. So if you had one header row, which is what most lists are going to have, that's going to tell it that the first row is a header. And then when I hit enter, it leaves that at the top all the time because it recognizes that as the header. And then it has alphabetized all of these other ones in order from there. If you wanted to go in the other way for whatever reason, like especially if it was a numeric list and you wanted to go from biggest to smallest or from Z to A, instead of doing by B ascending, you can simply change the ASC to DESC for descending, and then it will do it in the reverse order. So now it's going from Z through A. Again, most people won't do that with something that's actually using like names, but you might do it with something that was using numbers if you wanted everything ordered that way, say by grade level or something like that. So that's basic query language and how you can use it to do a simple function. In a later recording, I'll show you how you can use that to draw from multiple data points if you needed to do a more complicated sort.